to hear. All right. I've got Frank with me. I'm just going to turn off the that blurred background, see if you can see the team. Can you see? There's Frank and the boys. There's a few of them here. Beautiful Griffith. It's about 36 degrees outside, and it's going to be 40 degrees tomorrow. So, anyway, what's it at Wollongong? Anyone know what the degree or how hot it is?
It's probably about 25 now.
25. There you go. Okay. 80 degrees. Thanks, Coops. All right. I'm not going to go on about assessments. I think I'll let Adrian talk about it a bit more. Boys, listen up. Thursday week is the final assessment. You all know about that. Make sure you look at getting all your learning activities done up to 90% at least, because we're going through in the background just checking them. Let us know if you've got any issues, because we're going to actually, if we have something like 60 or 70%, we're not going to let you do the exam just because you won't be ready for it. Okay, I'm just going to blur that background. Is everyone else okay with on-site supervision? You guys here all right? Everything's done, up to date? I think we're just about done for marking. Gleno and Adrian, Frank, is it marking? They're all right, eh? I know we've just about finished demo and materials as well. There's just some loose ends for students doing resubmits and that. So the boys here looking pretty keen to have their last week, and that's it, finished, eh? A few beers. Where's the local place at Griffith? Anywhere at Griffith to go for a drink, there you go. All right. So there's going to be party all in the south region, I think, is there? All right, tonight I'm going to go through wet areas, which is the first time we've delivered this. So the reason why I've really wanted to go into AS 3740 is because I've dealt with some renovations last year with a colleague that I've been doing some building work, and there's some stuff that I picked up that I haven't even noticed myself, like the last 20, 30 years as a builder. So I just thought, God, I've got to dig into this one a bit deeper and maybe show you guys. So this is the first time I've delivered it. The pools, I've delivered it before because I used to be an E1 certifier, so I probably know that a bit better. But it's probably a good night. And as I said to some of the students at Wagga last night, it's not really a course you're going to remember everything because there's just too much information. But even talking to Adrian, Frank and Glenn, we don't remember it. Like I've been teaching, I keep saying it, I've been teaching building codes for, I reckon, 8-9 years now, and I still sometimes forget what a class 8 is, and class 9 I sort of still forget, but I can probably find where it is and find the information. That's what it's about now in the building industry. So, all right, can everyone see the screen? You boys at the back there see the screen? All right, so you can actually get your kitchen, bathroom and laundry renovation license. Does anyone know that? Does anyone aware that it's not a full builder's license? Have you ever looked into it? I'll quickly read some parts of it, and then I'll just show you where you can get your licensing. And what it is I think it's like 8 subjects from the Cert 4 if you wanted to. It's not going to matter for you boys and girls because you have all of those quals. But I just want to quickly touch on this before we get into the wet areas. So to get a license or certificate in kitchen, bathroom and building reno, you need to complete, there's a few subjects. Sorry, this screen's just getting hard, getting used to. It's work that's involved in the installation, refurbishment, restoration and on-site repairs of or to a kitchen, bathroom or laundry. It does not include work affecting any internal or external load-bearing parts of the building that is essential to the stability of the building or any part of it. So that includes, your foundations, floors, walls, roof beams, and columns. So really, it's non-structural licensing work to do your bathroom renovation. So a lot of wall tilers do it. Some plumbers do it. They get their renovation license. For you guys, you're going to have your Cert 4 complete, so you could get this, but you'll be able to get your builder's license, which you could do the whole lot. Okay? So the licensing types, so it's the same as all categories of licensing, plumbing, building, carpentry. You can get your qualified supervisor certificate, and you can also get, your contractor license. your qualified supervisor's certificate or an endorsed contract license. Now, we've gone through that before, so if you want to go back, have a bit of a read up yourself. But that's for every category, okay? And I'm just obviously showing this one for wet areas. The thing that I noticed, I just checked this today. You have to do, hello mate, how are you? What's your name? Cooper, hello mate. There's one thing that I just noticed, it's this qualifications, I'll open it up here. Is that you need one qualification from Group A and one from Group B, right? So Group A is, you can be a carpenter, joiner, plumber, or wall and floor tiler, yeah? So that's as per the Home Building Act. Part B, can you see these subject codes? Or maybe the first few words of one of the subjects? Hello, mate, what's your name? Luke, hey, mate. Good to meet you. Sorry, I'm just saying it out to all the Griffith students. So you got the building codes, you got OH&S, you got contracts, estimates, labour, produce labour materials, select and procure materials, plan building work, conduct on sites. So there's, what is it? Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 subjects. I think you guys are doing 16. So if you did this, you might as well keep going. Do you know what I mean? Get your full builder's license. Anyway, those old codes there for some of the older quals. Like, how long ago was that, Frank? Probably 5, 10 years ago? Yeah. Does that make sense? What if you need to move a window or something structural in the bathroom? Can someone answer that for Daniel? Does anyone know? If you were doing it, this is what I would say, you're actually not allowed to because it's structural. But if you're a carpenter and you have a contractor's license, I think you'd probably be able to do it because that's a carpenter's job. Yeah? So technically, you would not be able to. I'm going to look into that. That's a really good question. But I'd be saying if you're a carpenter, you can do it. I'd be saying most people do it anyway, but they shouldn't. But it would still be on you. If you've done it wrong, you're going to get in a bit of strife. I would be guessing most, yes, so the carpenters can do it. All right. So there's the link there, boys and girls. That'll help you with regards to if you wanted to do your licensing or just want to know a bit more about it. I'm going to go back. What I am going to do is get you just to answer a quick forum. Can you refresh? I've probably already mentioned it, but what I want you to do is do a quick research on the Australian standard, and you can probably tell me in the chat box because I've already mentioned it. For the name of waterproofing residential wet areas, what I might do is put my copy up. I want you to do a little bit of research at the start. And can you notice it's called waterproofing residential wet areas? Yeah, Riley, you're all over it, and I have mentioned it, so. But I want you to find out if the commercial buildings can be used for this Australian standard. Can someone, before I open them up, can someone tell me residential, what is it, residential slabs and footings, AS 2870, can you use some commercial buildings? Can you use that standard? Does anyone know? So AS 2870, that gives you the depth of your edge beams and depth of your slab, sizes of your steel. Can you use commercial buildings for that? Yes or no? Does anyone know? And while you're doing that, I'm going to open up AS 3740 for you. I've got a copy. So can someone tell me in the chat box? Where is it? Can someone tell me? Anyone know before we get an answer? Does anyone know AS 2870 residential slabs and footings? Can you do commercial projects with it? Good on you, Josh. Thanks, mate. All right. I don't want to wait too long. You actually can. So you can use some of the information in or most of the information in AS 2870 for some commercial buildings. okay? But I would start looking deep in with, hello, mate. Hey, how you doing? Good. I would start checking, obviously, if you're doing any big commercial jobs, I'll be getting a structural engineer to do it, okay? All right. Tim, you're all over it. All right, so Tim has answered that question with regards to the forum. So can you find out if commercial buildings can use this Australian standard? And you can. If you quickly look yourselves, I'm going to bring it up on this PowerPoint, so I'm not going to open it up. You can actually do it for class 1, 2, and 4. I think there's a part where you can do for class 3s as well. Hello, mate. How you doing? Good, boys. Thanks for coming. I'll come and chat to you after I finish the lesson. Okay, so and you can notice Adrian's just made a point. So all the standards have the limitations noted in the beginning of them. So whenever you get an Australian standard, you know, we've gone through, how many have we gone through, you reckon? Half a dozen? 6 to 10? Make sure you look at the start of it because you'll give you limitations and you'll know whether you can use it or not. So I'll give you an example, guys. You know the problem site, like a P site, there would be no design for size of steel or size of footings or size of edge beams in AS 2870 because it's a problem site that has to be instruction engineer to design. All right. So just make sure you look at the information. And what I used to do is like I keep reading it over and over again to try and say, oh, okay, that makes sense. All right. All right. I'll let you answer the rest of that forum yourself, yeah? Is the audio all right, guys? Those online? All right. I got a PowerPoint. I made this over the weekend. That's how boring my life is. All right. Can you also see the screen there? Are you on Teams? What was your name, sir? Luke. Hey, Luke. How you doing? You boys all on Teams? Yeah. All right. Did you do your tenants choice in that? You do? Okay. All right. Those online, I actually can't. All right. Whilst I'm doing this presentation, can you make sure you open up AS 3740 yourselves and just have a look at it, just to get familiar with it? And Adrian's put the snapshot up. He's all over it. So listen up, boys. So this standard sets out minimum requirements for the materials, design and installation of waterproofing for domestic wet areas. Who here in the classroom's done a renovation and done a wet area? Put your hands up. Yeah? Who online has done it? Tell me, just give me a Y in the chat box or a tick or something, or a thumbs up. Who's done it? I reckon just about all of yous. Who's pulled out AS 3740? Anyone? No? Has your boss? Your boss hasn't pulled it out? Ask him when you do it, say, we pull out AS 3740. Yeah, all right. The standard does not cover situations where flooding of the wet area occurs through overflowing of vessels and showers or plumbing failures. Okay, so don't get too deep with it. Just worry about materials, design and installation of waterproofing for domestic wet areas. So, yeah, that's right, Josh. And remember, it doesn't have to be as per it exactly. You can do an innovative way. Remember, we talk about the building code, and it's these are the acceptable construction standards. You can do an innovative method. Do you remember the alternative solutions we talked about? So if you want to do something different, as long as it complies, you can say, right, talk to an engineer and say, I'm going to do it this way. Does that help? All right, this standard applies to class 1, 2, and 4. It also applies to wet areas with other buildings with a similar level of use, including sole occupancy units with a class 3 building. Do we all understand what a class 3 was? Does anyone remember a class 3? It was like a hostel, hotel, boarding house, yep. And can anyone explain a sole occupancy unit? I think it's SOUs, which is just like a single unit where someone lives, sole occupancy, like the same for class 2s. Yeah, like a little apartment. All right, I'll move on. If you go into the definitions, boys, listen up, can you? if you just go into the definitions, look through all of them, but I've highlighted the ones that I think are sort of quite relevant, or maybe harder to understand. So bond breaker, does everyone understand a bond breaker? A bond breaker? I've got some pictures I'll show you in a moment. It's a system that prevents the membrane bonding to the substrate bedding or lining. They have them in the corners. I'll show you a picture in a moment. Maximum retained water level. Has anyone ever heard of that term? The point at which surface water will start to overflow out of the shower. Yeah, so you got your hob at a certain height, so the maximum retained water level is going to be what? Say 100 mil. So your maximum retained water level that doesn't have a hob is only going to be 10 mil or something. So you have to have, you got to make sure it runs away pretty quickly in comparison to a hob. Yeah. There's a few other definitions there. Most of them you should know that. You know what a shower screen is, shower tray. I think if anything, maybe the bottom one, do we all understand the difference between a shower area that's enclosed and unenclosed? I'm assuming you guys know that. I'm going to move on. Waterproofing, or WP, the property of a material that does not allow, there's water resistant and waterproof. You have to remember that, it's pretty important. So waterproofing is the property of a material that does not allow moisture to penetrate, through it when tested in accordance with 4858. So that's one of the other standards that talks about the materials. We don't need to go into it, but just remember, waterproofing does not allow moisture to penetrate through it. Because the next one was water resistant. I'll talk about that in a moment. I'll just go back. For the purposes of the standard, the following materials used in waterproofing systems are deemed to be waterproof, so they can be stainless steel, copper, flexible waterproof sheet flooring materials, and any membrane that meets the 4858 standard. So there's another standard. Most of the products you're going to buy are going to say that it meets the requirements of AS 4858. All right. So I'll go to the water resistant part first. So we said how waterproofing, let me just go back. Waterproofing does not allow moisture to penetrate, but water resistant, the property of a system or material that restricts moisture movement and will not degrade under conditions. So it's not going to stop it, but it restricts it. Guys, give me a bit. It's hard for me to do it to talk. Does that make sense? A waterproofing system is a combination of elements that are required to achieve a waterproof barrier as required by the standard. So that's the whole lot. That includes the substrate. Does anyone know, you guys know what a substrate is? Can someone in the chat box tell me what a substrate is? Membrane, bond breakers, sealants, and finishes. Does anyone know the term substrate? Can someone in the chat box? Yeah, so Josh is all. So it's the material you're working on. So it could be concrete, it could be FC sheet, it could be particle board flooring. So some of those substrates would be water resistant, some might not be. Okay, and that determines to what degree you're going to start waterproofing the system or the wet area. Yeah, that's right, Riley. I won't go into this in full depth, but water-resistant substrates, so walls can include your concrete, cement render, fibre cement, water-resistant plasterboard, as per that standard, any masonry. Your floors can include concrete, compressed fibre, fibre cement sheeting, flooring grade particle board sheeting in accordance with those standards, and same with structural plywood in accordance with any of those standards. Imagine if you get some crappy particle board sheeting that you think's compliant and it's actually not. How do you know? Who's checked? Have you ever checked? You don't check that much, eh? Oh, very rarely. Yeah. So it's all on the builder. Anyway, just be mindful of that. Righto, so design and installation. Waterproofing systems and their installation details shall be waterproof or water resistant as per the code. While I'm going through this, can you go to your NCC, open that up now. and just open up volume 2, and I think it's section 3. And I want you to have a look because I'm going to open mine up as well. All right. So you've got a snapshot, that helps. Okay, so remember acceptable construction. So this is the old-fashioned way of doing it. If you just do it the standard method, you will comply. Table 3811, I'm going to put that up in a moment. That's in the Australian standard. We need to make sure building elements in the wet areas within a building must be waterproof in accordance with that table and comply with AS 3740. Yeah? And I'll put that up later on at the end of the night. For those that are searching, go to part 38, health and amenity. So you remember the main part of the building codes. I hope you can remember. Don't do 2016. I can see someone's looking at 2016. That's the wrong one. Remember section 3, acceptable construction. That's 3 years old. Anyway, I'll move on. All right. Does anyone know the falls required in wet areas? Anyone know the falls? 1 to 100. How much is that over a metre? Is it? 10 mil over a metre? Sounds good to me. We're required, so let's just think about this. Falls in floor finishes shall allow all surface water to drain without ponding except for residual water remaining due to surface tension. Can someone in the chat box or you guys here tell me what residual water means? What's residual water? Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's right. It's like the water left over. So you've got enough fall. Oh, they're high-fiving. Griffith boys have just give themselves a high five. I love it. Look out, we've got some high fives going on here. So if you pour, if you have a shower and you've got the right amount of fall, when the shower's finished and you've walked out, it's not completely dry, is it? You have some residual water that is due to surface tension. So that is actually permitted in the standard. So if you get a client giving you grief saying you've still got water there, you go, well, that's residual water. But if you've got it where it starts ponding, that's no good. If it starts ponding, I'll give you an example. We did a job and it was really small and we had 2 wastes. We should have had 1 waste all the way to just to the shower, just one hole, one to the dish drain. But we had 2 wastes and it was too hard, too small for the tiler. He couldn't get it right. So when they have a shower, it'll start trickling down and going around the building outside. So we had to pull it up and redo it. Like, well, we did it wrong, but it was the tiler. So you might be very mindful of that because if it doesn't work, especially in unenclosed showers, mate, if it's not done properly, it'll find the way and water will start tracking around. All right, so that's 1 to 100. So that is for falls in floor finishes. For general bathroom floor area only, the minimum fall to the waste shall be 1 to 100. So for shower falls in shower floors shall be sufficient to prevent surface water from being retained on the shower floor except for residual water remaining due to surface tension and water from discharging outside the area. For shower areas with a vertical separation, so just think about this, between the shower area and the wet area, such as a shower screen, a hob, a step down or water stop, the fall is going to be 1 to 100. For other areas, so for ones that are unenclosed and don't have a separation, a vertical separation, it's 1 to 80. Yeah? So what's the diff? What's 1 to 80? Can someone give me a distance over, say, a metre? Can someone tell me in the chat box? Anyone know? Josh, can you just do the maths for everyone, please? 12 and a half? 12 and a half. I'm pretty sure it's 12 and a half. Tim, you're all over it. All right. You will never forget that. Good work. Make sure you say to your bosses, where's AS 3740? All right. A couple of other definitions before I get a wriggle on. Baths to be recessed into a wall. Did you guys do bathroom as a subject? That's actually a good subject. We don't do it at Wollongong. Has anyone else done it? Any other campuses? They did it with Bruno here. It's actually a pretty good subject. What you have is, Wagga does it. Okay, that's good. What they do is an integral vertical upstand lip. So it's recessed into a wall along the side of the bath walls to enable a waterproof junction between the bath and the walls. But you can also have baths with a downturn lip. The downturn lip shall be installed as an insert. So it's as shown as a couple of snapshots to show you. All right. So that's permitted as per the standard, but then you can also do it typical bath joints here. All right. So there's more than one way to do it. I know this is getting pretty fancy. A lot of soap holders. Have anyone noticed that you need to have a fall in the base of the soap holder? It can't be flat, just a slight fall, so it doesn't pond. If it ponds, it's actually non-compliant. They can make you rip it out. Now, little things like that as a builder, if there's a mistake and it ponds, you have to come back and fix it. And how much of a punish is that? Like, do you know how hard it is to actually, technically, if you just pull out one tile, that affects the whole membrane, doesn't it? So really the whole thing has to come out, you have to redo it. So be very mindful of that, eh? All right, I've just taken a snapshot of a typical hobless construction. So some of the shower screen extrusions may not permit the water to stop extending into a rebate, so they've got a channel section. May be needed. God, hearing two of me is hard enough. To be installed over the water stop angle in the shower screen placed on the top of the channel. So you can see where the floor substrate is, then you've got your membrane, and you've got your angle where the shower screen is, right over the centre. So what's that, 5mm minimum, it says. Some details of the bond breakers or different types. In the corners there, you can have your flexible sealant or a floor substrate with some membrane, or then you can have the backing rod, that 6mm backing rod. You seen those? All right, if you've got the standard open, go to Appendix C. And it's referring to the National Construction Code. They still refer it as the BCA, but some of those figures, C1 and C4, show it in a bit more depth. And a lot of the areas are taken as like 1500mm from the shower connection as an angle where you have to have the waterproofing. Table C1 pretty much is what you'll refer to all the time, whether you need waterproofing or not. I've got quite a few questions in the quiz. For example, waterproofing requirements with pre-formed shower base is not applicable for the floors and horizontal surfaces because it's pre-formed. Okay. For concrete and compressed fibre cement sheet flooring, so area adjacent to the bath, needs to have for the floors and horizontal surfaces some water resistant floor of the room, sorry. Laundries and WCs, water resistant floor of the room. Waterproof the junctions, the wall floor junctions. Okay. So sometimes I think I've quite often seen the builders go over and above what the standard calls for, and I'd probably still stick to that. Okay. All right, any questions? No? All right, I'm going to put that up for those who want to have a look after. I've got a build some video. It's 11 minutes though, but what I'm going to get you to do is watch it from the 5th minute because some of the stuff probably drags out, and it is quite a carpentry method. Like this is more carpentry, but it is still a builder needs to know it. So just a simple method of how to get the standard bathroom and your toilets, and most of you guys may already know this, so apologies for those that do. So go from the 5th minute onwards, and then I'll come back, yeah? So I'll just turn the audio off. Righto, for those that are all over this, that could have been a little bit painful for you, but thanks for bearing with us. I'll just wait till everyone else is done. It's a tough school, eh? If it's like 5 minutes out of your life, you're gonna give me grief. Sorry, Jared. I'll make sure I get something more exciting for you. How about this one, mate? I've got some innovative systems which are slightly different. So, do you want to have a watch of this one? This one's known as a product called Spa Panel. It's just come out from Europe, and you actually don't have to waterproof the back. It's just the sheet itself seals it. It's like a full system. So watch this one. And so this is not obviously as per AS 3740, not as per the code, but it is as per the code, but it complies through the performance solutions. So an alternative method. So this is quite interesting. This one, hopefully this one's a bit better for you. So refresh. Refresh, and I'll come back in when it's finished. Thanks, everyone. So just turn this on. Watch this one, guys. This is different, eh? Heaps different, this one. Yeah, it's different, eh? It looks pretty good, eh? Yeah, it's a good system. You just got to get the walls right. You don't get the walls right, it's really hard to click them in. Yeah. It's a good system. It's a good system. Righto, any comments? I haven't actually put the spa panel website up. You could probably research it yourselves and find it. I might put it up at the end of the night after I finish the delivery. It's like marine ply. It's 12 mil, and the front face is veneered, so that surface is waterproof. And because it's 1200 by 24, you can have longer sheets. It's only reliant on that where they put that clip lock joint to it. You have one seal on it, and then that seals it, and then you do another one over at the finish. That's all you need to do. That's it. Yeah, it's a pretty good system. It's probably, and carpenters do it. You just got to do like a day with the company, and you are qualified to install spa panel. It's a good system. So anyway, you can see the difference, like the stock standard. You guys are bored of that video, you know what I mean? The stock standard method of domestic wet areas, because everyone knows it, but then they've got all these new systems. So if you showed this new system to a client, they'd love you. They'd be like, wow, look at this. But you obviously got to have a go at it and get used to using it. So any other comments online? Any other comments with waterproof wet areas? So I have got that standard up there for you to save. There'll probably be a couple of little questions in the test, nothing major. It is really just something that you need to have with you so you understand. Okay, you're not going to remember the whole lot. From that, I'm going to move on. I've got the next topic, and I was going to talk about pools and building pools and barriers. Anyone got any questions on wet areas? No one? No questions? I'll put that activity up in a moment. I'll do it after. What I want you to do is tell me in the chat box, what building class is a swimming pool? Has anyone done one before? Can you research and place your answer in the chat box? Where did you find this information? You should know. Do you remember? Put it in 10B, you reckon? Some of the boys, someone said 10E. Did you say 10E? 10B. Is it 10B? Lachlan's all over it, I think. Can someone confirm for us? Has anyone actually built a swimming pool? So you get your builder's license, you are allowed to build a swimming pool. I've never run the jobs. I've been part of jobs where they've had swimming pools. I've never actually ran it myself. I would probably employ a specialist to do it, but in saying that, the specialist earns some pretty big money, eh? I heard a couple of guys just to stand at pools like 50, 60 grand. I don't think it'd be too hard to figure out how to do it because it's just a floor and walls. You'd have to make sure your plumbing would be allowed for accordingly. Just the skin. What I want you to do is, and I'm not going to put the answers up, but I want you to do this as part of one of your activities. I want you to list as many different styles of pools and how they can be built. I want you to also, this is where I'm going to go into this E1 certification. I'll talk about this at the end of tonight. List the type of barriers that are used to prevent children from entry. It's a little bit of a big deal now at the moment with being compliant with the council. So I'll leave that for you boys and girls to answer yourself. What I am going to do is I'm just going to touch on actual building of swimming pools. And I've just got, types of pool construction where you've got your fiberglass, you've got your, you can see there one here is just blockwork one with a slab, shotcrete. This is probably the most common, I suppose, the most effective. The fiberglass ones. So you are, once you get your once you get your builder's license, you'll be qualified to do a pool. I've got the link here for the licensing for it. So swimming pool building refers to all work involved in the construction, renovation, alteration, repair, extension, maintenance, decorative or protective treatment of a swimming pool. It includes all other work directly associated with the swimming pool installation, such as your landscaping, safety fencing, pool water filtration and heating. Any other work not directly associated with the correct and safe installation and functioning of a swimming pool is excluded. All right. I saw that there was a qualification you had to get your cert for a swimming pool building, but I've never even come across that until today. I only just noticed it. But as I said before, builder's license, you're qualified to complete to do a swimming pool yourselves. Okay, licensing are all the same. Just going to open up this next link. So I hope you probably already know most of this. I'm hoping you are. You need to go to your council for approval. You need to get a geotech survey. You need to check for your underground cables and anything that needs to go in during it. Site considerations, your sewers, your stormwater drainage systems, and any other utility pipes. Select the appropriate pool for the site. So consider maintenance and the right equipment. Approvals. You need some signage during construction, and obviously choosing the right builder. So that's you guys. Okay. Now, we don't go into pool building too much because that's a bit of a specialist trade. But has anyone dealt with swimming pool barriers? Has anyone built a swimming pool barrier? Has anyone had a non-compliance certificate received? Those online, I'm just checking out the guys here at Griffith. Anyone? Yeah, to swap all the windows. Yeah. That's Lachlan, yeah? So those online, Lachlan's just telling me the windows were opened up into the fenced area, so it was non-compliant. Yeah. Look, okay, I got a little bit of knowledge of this. I also need one certified for a while, and I actually stopped doing it, obviously because I was concentrating on TAFE. But it was, I would say, the bearer of bad news. I only certified one pool that was compliant. This is for the barriers, right? This is not the actual pool. This is the barriers. Okay, so if you sell your property, you have to get an E1 certifier or a council inspector to check the handrail, whether you get a certificate of conformance or non-conformance. I only had about 100. I got one. I approved one that was okay. Tim, that's a good point. I hope tonight might be able to help you a bit with some of these standards. So I've got a quick forum. I'm actually going to get you to do it now. Can you just refresh for us? Can you please do some research? I'm going to leave this one for you guys to do for me. Can you please research swimming pool guidelines and tell me what are the new requirements for April 2016? So I'm just going to turn off my audio and just sit tight for a minute and see some of the answers. Just waiting on a few more and then I'll continue. Right, Lachlan's on fire tonight. Man of the match, mate. Oh, look out, cut and paste, nothing like it. From the 29th of April 2016, you need to have a valid certificate of compliance or non-compliance if you want to sell your house. Okay? So to the sale contract for any property with a swimming pool or spa to be sold to rent or property, you need to have a copy of the valid compliance certificate, or no, not worrying about the compliance or the occupation certificate. The main thing we're looking at, right, this is for the handrail. You can sell the house with a non-compliance certificate. You just say to the vendor, the actual handrail is non-compliant. You still need to fix it up. Now that could cost, seriously, anywhere between $50 to fix up a hinge to $10,000, $20,000 to pull down a tree or redo the fence or redo the whole lot. Okay? It's a bit of a sticky point. I'll just have a look at a couple more answers, see if you're all on the right track. Dan had an answer. I missed. Oh, yours is there. There you are. I missed you last night, mate. Anyway. Swimming pool. Oh, okay. Here's an even more in-depth answer. You must have a register swimming pool with the New South Wales Swimming Pool Register, which is correct. Then you can get a accredited certified register to do the inspection, which is like an E1 certifier, or you can get the council to do it. All right. Are you happy if I go on with the answer, boys? Righto, so they go with a bit of a spiel. So Fair Trading is a pretty good website. So the reason why they're doing it is because of the children under the age of 5 are high risk of drowning. And they reckon an average of 30 children have drowned in Australia each year for the past 10 years. Okay, so as of April 2016, you had to have all pools have to be registered, and you have to make sure that they're compliant as per the Australian standard 1926. Now, I'm not going to go into the full depth of it because it gets pretty confusing. The reason why I'm saying that is because 1926, there's a 2012 version, there's a 1991 or something version, then there's a 1986. So you're allowed to use the older Australian standard if you haven't done any modifications. But for me to go into that and explain all of that, it's going to be like a full day. You do like a 3-day course, okay? That's to do the E1 certification. So I'm not going to go into it too much. I am going to just go, you need to make sure it's compliant as per AS 1926, but we're going to look at the 2012, the most up-to-date standard. And the reason why I sort of push this, I know because I know this information quite well, I reckon it's pretty important for carpenters and builders to know, because you'll go out and you'll start building something and it goes in, it's in the way of the NCZ for a handrail, and then you have to pull the whole thing down. So I think you really need to be aware of it. I never knew it until I started this E1 certification. Okay, shit, I did the course ago, I didn't even know that. Okay. All right. So what you do is, I'll give you the links. You can open, as a owner, you have to register your pool. I'll go in there, they register the pool, they click on it, you'll get a pool inspection. Let me just open this up. And it goes into the depth of the certification and so forth. What you need to do is, in its simplest form, you need to make sure your handrail doesn't let a 5-year-old kid in. But then that includes your boundary barriers, which is the neighbour's property. And it's supposed to be 1.8. If it's less than 1.8, you've got to redo it. Yeah? So what I'm going to do is, you're pretty much going to answer this for me, but can anyone say, I suppose I probably might have told you, how can you comply? Which Australian standard can you refer to? So I don't need that. That's the link. What I do need is this. This is what I want you to look. This is the most important. This is 1926. I want you to open this. I'm going to scroll down this. I know the scrolling is not the best, but it's probably just good to get a bit of an overview of it. So 1926 is the Australian standard for swimming pool safety. So it's not for building the pool, it's for the barriers. Okay, because if a kid gets in and they drown and you're the builder, you could be held liable. Okay. So the scope, this standard specifies requirements for the design, construction and performance of barriers that will restrict the access of young children to swimming pools, yeah? It goes into the actual definitions. I'm not going to go into that too much because you guys are going to search it on the quiz. There is a couple of differences. Your barrier height needs to be 1.2. That's for on the property. You have a boundary barrier. It needs to be 1.8. So the boundary barrier is the dividing between you and the neighbours. There's a acronym. It's called NCZ. And let me just get it. It's called a non-climbable zone. So it's a zone on a barrier and in the space adjacent to a barrier running the full length of the barrier, including a gate, that is intended to restrict climbing of the barrier by young children. I'll show you in a moment. So you can't build anything in that NCZ. Does that make sense? You can't even have a tree. You can't have a chair there. You're not allowed to. Known as a non-climbable zone. Right? And I can waffle on for ages, and the best thing to do is show you the picture. Maybe I'll do the 3D one, I think. Can you see that? So anything in that area is not permitted to be built or climbable. If it's not climbable, because sometimes it gets subjective, it'll be all right. For example, see that 900mm arc? The NCZ2 and the NCZ3s, that's that big arc. So what they say is that they reckon a kid under the age of 5, if there's something within that zone, they can climb up, jump in, get in the pool and die and drown. Yeah? The NCZ1, that's actually the actual barrier itself. But they reckon you can't have anywhere where you can like grab onto stuff. Now you might say, see this, it's probably hard to see the rail there. That rail is permitted as long as it's bigger than 900mm. What they say is if it's less than 900mm, a kid can step on it and step on it. But if it's 900mm or more, then it's okay. Yeah. Now, if you ever were doing a job, the DA, whoever's designed it, the architect, they should have this sorted. But a lot of times, a lot of jobs, it actually hasn't. And the thing that happens is the architect, they just go, oh shit, we didn't know, we made a mistake. What they do is they go to their drawings, they press delete. Do you know how easy it is? Does everyone know the difference between like a tradesman fixing up a mistake and an architect? An architect can press delete and then he fixes up his drawings. A builder or a carpenter, if he hangs a door the wrong way around, what does that cost him a day's work, doesn't it? And he doesn't get paid for it. So it's probably a good idea for you guys to have a bit of an understanding for this because you don't want this to come back and bite you on the bum if ever you're doing that. I'm just looking at some of the comments. Over 1800mm, you have to have all climbable horizontal legs on the outside. Yes, that's right, Josh. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. Okay, so that's for inside. That's for 1.2. You can see your height is 1.2. You can see if there's a step, it can't be closer than 500mm because I reckon the kids can step in. And NCZ4 is the non-climbable zone on the inside of the pool. All right. And I'll just show you the pictures. Josh just made a comment. So can you notice, and I also thought this as well, can you see the outside says it may be climbable and you have an NCZ5, so you can't have anything within this area that could be climbable. Now, why is there like this, the rails there that hold the fence together? Why would you think that's permitted? The reason why is because what evidence they've got is that they reckon if a kid's on the outside and they get a ladder or they get up, they could climb up those rails, they climb up, they look down, they see that 900mm and they'll look down and they'll go, it's too far to jump, so they don't jump. So that's why they say they would prefer the rails on the outside. That's the reason why. Every time you've done a job, every builder has made this mistake. They put the rails on the inside because they think it stops the kids from climbing up, but it has to be the other side. So remember that. Josh has just made a good comment. So it's less likely for a kid to jump down 1800 mil. Does that make sense? Now, if you have an instance where there's other little bits and pieces, but this is getting into the fine detail, which I won't have enough time to show you. And this is something that you'll only really take in until you start doing it. Like I know it well, but like I've even started to forget stuff because I haven't done it for a while. But grab this standard and keep it, with your package. The little packages have been collating. I'll talk about the gates in a minute, but this is an issue that a lot of architects have and a lot of tradesmen, builders don't know. So see where you have like an indentation in a wall or a projection. If it's more than 10 mil, that is considered climbable. So that would be non-compliant in the swimming pool area or outside going into the non-climbable zone. Okay. The gates, they have to be, which way does anyone know which way they're supposed to swing? Outwards, yeah, outwards, and they have to be able to. Sorry, what did he say? Inwards. Oh my God, is that like Pools and Griffith? Is it? Yes, it's got to be outwards and it's got to be lockable and it's just got to be able to swing and lock all the time. Yeah. There's another detail. Can you see? They call it non-climbable. Can you see the detail A? Right. If you have that and you can't remove it and it's inside the non-climbable zone, that you can get a piece of timber or like a chamfer piece. If it's 60 degrees minimum, then that's compliant because they say that the kid can't stand on it. That's what they think. Well, that's what they say. So you're allowed to do that. All right. 1200 mil, 900 mil minimum for where the rails are. 100 mil maximum opening. So, you know what's funny? Has anyone know the sphere for your stairs? 125, yeah. But for pools, it's 100 mil maximum. So, and the actual pool fences are Australian standard manufactured, and you can squash it. In between the 900 mil space, you can squash the actual bars. Some of them, like the Bunnings ones, you can squash them that much. You can still get 100 mil through it, 100 mil sphere. They reckon a kid can get his head through. Now, I don't know why it's like that for the swimming pools and not for normal stairs. 120, I don't know, but that's what it says. Just work to that. Okay. I just always find that one interesting. Some of the other stuff is in real detail, in depth, where it can be climbable and where it can't. There's nothing else that really jumps out at me. The rest of it is like you're going to go into a lot more depth, but we've got some quizzes up. Maybe the NCZ3 clashes with that balcony, so that the balustrade that complies with that standard. And then it goes into loading requirements. So I'm going to leave that as is. Are there any questions with that? Does everyone sort of understand where I'm going? I'll just have a look. Dan, Bunnings, sill, boundary fence and pool fence. There you go. So Daniel's all over that. So there are two different types of fences. You need to make sure that Bunnings supply the correct boundary fence material rather than a pool fence rather than a boundary fence. Above ground pool, yeah. So there's a section in, I'll probably look at it after I open everything up, Kamal. There is a section for above ground pools and you still need to have a fence. They used to say that 1.2 above ground pool fence was the fence, but not anymore. You still need to have a fence around it. All right. I'm going to open up the picture of the NCZs, which you're probably familiar with. Yeah. And from that, are there any questions? Was that a clap? Did I just get a clap? Huh? All right. Has anyone got anything to say online? All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up There's only a couple of simple little learning activities, so it's not a hard night tonight, but I think it's quite a good one. There is 10 questions on AS 3740, which I'd like you to have a crack at. Have a bit of a think about it. And then there's 10 to 15 questions on the swimming pool barriers. All right. I'm going to sit tight. Thank you, boys and girls. I'm going to sit tight. That's it for learning material. I'm going to sit tight, have a chat to